You are listening to the Metro South Morning Show on the new WXBR 1460.
AM 1460, the new WXBR. You are listening to the Metro South Morning Show, 7:09 on this Wednesday morning. Peter Czymbor and Mike Paiva here with you. It's PM in the AM, and joining us live in studio now is a man who served the city of Brockton for 5 terms as mayor from 1995 to 2005, the longest-serving mayor in the city of Brockton's history. It's Jack Yunits. Jack, good morning. Welcome to the new WXBR studios here on 250 Belmont Street.
Good morning, and I love your new digs, Peter. That's fantastic. It's the beautiful thing about the Enterprise building is that in the 25 years that XBR was operating its talk shows out of there, nothing ever changed, including the carpets. So it's great to see this. It's lovely. Gosh, we know we need you. Having a voice in Brockton is just critically important to keeping the public informed. When I first ran for office, we had 2. We had Bill Alex on XBR, which was then BET, and we had Pat Barnes doing the morning on ATD or MSX back then, and we also had ATD FM. So we had 3 radio stations that were broadcasting Brockton news on a regular basis and Brockton Conversation on a regular basis. Plus the Enterprise had about 3 reporters covering Brockton at all time, and some very good reporters.
Well, things have changed a little bit here and there, but we
indeed.
hope that we can fill the void that was lacking for the 7 months when the station was off the air, with the new WXBR studios being back, and so here at 250 Belmont Street. Jack, tell us, what are you up to nowadays, circa 2013, because it's been 8 years since you were mayor of the city of Brockton, yet your name still comes up quite often.
Yeah, and I wish it wouldn't, but it does. I spent 2 years mediating cases with Commonwealth Mediation, and then I went back in and started practicing law again, and that's what I've been doing since then. Mostly development law, green energy, a lot of energy, conservation energy, and those kind of things. So it's been very good. It's been very good.
Do you enjoy being back in the private sector after being a public servant for so long?
I miss the public service. I have to admit, I do miss it. I missed moving the ball forward. I miss being involved in the community as much as I was. But I'm real happy to be back in the private sector. Happy that I can let my wife have her life, which is important to me as well, and be there for my kids. I have 2 grandkids now, and it's nice to be available when they need me.
You mentioned that working in a lot of cases involving energy in your post-public service life, I guess we'll call it. One of the hot issues within the city of Brockton lately that always comes up on this radio station is the proposed power plant that could be potentially coming to Brockton. Now, let's go back in time a little bit. The first rumblings of a power plant coming to Brockton, correct me if I'm wrong, did come towards the tail end of your reign as mayor?
No, the first one came back in the 70s. And then there was another one back in the 80s. The one in the 80s was a trash energy plant. This area that we're talking about has been zoned for power plants since the 60s. And given Brockton's size, a number of energy companies have looked at it over the years. Then there was plans for an oil-fired plant at some point in the middle. And then in 1999, a new group came into Brockton looking to build a natural gas power plant. In 2000, that was approved by the city council 10-0. And it was approved for a number of reasons. One, we all went out and did our homework. And I urge you, as the people's informant, to do yours. To call Braintree, call Weymouth, call Taunton, call Bellingham, call the communities that have power plants, call their boards of health, and set the record straight. You'll find out there were 0 issues with these things. And we've already left $30 million on the table on the power plant. So we advocated for it. We were going to do good things with that money, and we were going to keep Brockton moving forward. Remember, we have 3 hospitals. I'm a green energy guy for the most part, but we have 3 hospitals and a health center in Brockton. Huge energy users. And to say that we don't need to create energy in our city is kind of a misnomer. So I do want to set the record straight on it, though. They were a client. The new company was a client and only a client. I had no interest, never had a monetary interest in it, and I haven't been involved with it since they litigated against the city. At that point, I had no choice. I had to step aside.
So it sounds like the present-day power plant that potentially could be coming to Brockton is something that you're very much in favor of?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Brockton needs the revenue. And once these things are up and running, they're absolutely non-intrusive. Yes, there's a stack, and the stack can be a bit of a detriment to neighbors. I admit that. So on cell towers. So isn't Route 24 if you live where I live and you don't have air conditioning. We have a number of kids in this city now that drive those mini Hollies at 90 miles an hour, Route 24 constantly, and you can hear them. And, of course, an 18-wheeler downshifting, and needless to say, the smell of carbon monoxide coming through your bedroom window at night, they don't make it pleasant. But it's part of living in the city. And you have to balance. You have to set the balance in the right scale. And I've always been a proponent of the power plant. I'm not going to stop now. I haven't had any evidence shown to me that would give the public reason to be nervous about it.
There is opposition to the power plant, as you know, and a very
Rightly
vocal
so.
opposition at that.
Rightly so, and they have every right. This is my opinion. It's not the right opinion necessarily. It's my opinion. And they have every right to their opinion, and I respect that 100%. I don't appreciate the fact that what you tell me this morning that they're running commercials using my name. That is totally wrong. Totally wrong. I have nothing to do with it now. I haven't had anything to do with it since they filed a suit against the city. And I don't know what's going on with it, quite frankly. Haven't got a clue. I couldn't tell you. So it's really preposterous and unfair that they would do that to me. I'm a private citizen, and I shouldn't be in that position.
Well, I mentioned to you just prior to in the year that your name still does come up more often than not here on WXBR due to the fact that in a lot of commercials run by folks who are in opposition to the power plant, your name comes up. We'll get to that a little bit more in a few moments, but a few things I want to touch on that you mentioned. Is there any pollution that would come as a result of this power plant being in Brockton? If so, how abundant would it be? How significant would it be?
The pollution is so minor. I think that the most common comparison that I saw is that it would be less than 24 SUVs going up and down Main Street all day. We have 72,000 registered vehicles in Brockton. That puts it in perspective. Obviously, there's emissions, but in terms of the impact on public health, zero.
And you mentioned that you have no ties to the current power plant folks. That seems to be an allegation that does come up here and there, even if in whispers.
And it's absolutely false. Absolutely false. I was an attorney. I was brought in when the original developer, my great friend George Brockton, got sick with melanoma and eventually passed away. I came in as a friend of his. I didn't want to get involved back then. And I stayed involved as a legal consultant to the group until they filed suit against the city. I mean, obviously at that point, they're suing people that are friends of mine. And I could no longer partake in any way in that point. I had to back out.
Once again, you're listening to AM 1460, the new WXBR. You're listening to the Metro South Morning Show. Peter Czymbor and Mike Paiva here with you on this Wednesday morning, joined in studio by former mayor of Brockton, Jack Yunits. And Jack?
You notice I brought my own coffee?
I didn't notice you brought your own coffee.
I want Ron Van Dam used to serve me coffee with White's pastries. and I knew you guys were downscaling a little bit money-wise, so I brought my own coffee.
Well, thank you for...
by the way, Pat Barnes this time of year would be serving tomatoes with a nice little slice of mozzarella, a little splash of oil, and a little pepper on a nice fresh basil on top.
I think we should say, Mike, because we have to take care of our guests that wake up this early and come on and visit us in the morning. We have to develop our own shtick as far as catering is concerned. We'll work on that, Jack. That's a constructive critique that has been duly noted. Want to mention that due to the fact that I mentioned at the top of the interview, you're the longest-serving mayor in Brockton's history. Perhaps that's the reason why 8 years out of your reign as mayor of Brockton, your name still comes up quite often. And in a lot of political ads that are being run on the station right now, they allege a link between you and current Brockton mayoral candidate Bill Carper. So I guess my question is there any link between you and Bill Carpenter politically in regards to his run for mayor?
No, actually, Bill and I have been... we've known each other for many years. We've been friendly for many years. But I've also known and loved Linda Belzotti for many years. I, in my heart, believe that former mayors should stay out of mayor's races. They have no business being there. in the last couple years when Jim Harrington and Mayor Belzotti were opponents, I was friends with both of them, and I stayed out. And I stayed out even the last one with Linda because I don't think it's appropriate. But if Linda picks up, Mayor Belzotti picks up the phone and calls me, if Billy Carpenter picks up the phone and calls me, any of the candidates pick up the phone and calls me, I'd give all of my time to them and work with them to try to make a better city. I don't take sides. I just want to see the right thing happen in Brockton. I haven't given up on my city yet, and I don't intend to. So I think it's great that the discourse, I think it's great that there's some real issues that we discussed, but I don't take sides, and I won't take sides. I'll help either one of them on the issues, but not the campaign.
When was the last time you spoke with Bill or any of the mayoral candidates who are running this fall?
You know, it's funny. I haven't talked to Bill. I saw Bill last night at school committee, but I haven't talked to Bill in months, literally months. And Mayor Belzotti and I have talked only about city issues relative to ongoing projects such as the Trinity Project downtown. None of them have called me and asked for any advice on their campaign. So.
Now, I mentioned earlier on that there are some ads being run on the station right now which bring up your name in regards to the power plant. You said that you have not heard those ads, correct?
I have not, no.
In some of the ads where it discusses Bill Carpenter and him being in favor of Brockton's proposed power plant, it says that Bill Carpenter is carrying out Mayor Jack Yunits' schemes. And there's another ad in relation to Bill Carpenter's idea for the city of Brockton to purchase the Aquaria desalination plant that refers to him as a Jack Yunits pitchman. You're telling us neither of them are true?
No. You know what? That's doesn't surprise me coming from the anti-power because they are simple-minded in their pursuit, and they'll do anything negative to hurt Brockton, and that's too bad that they're doing that. Bill Carpenter is an intelligent guy. He's a businessman. I'm sure he looks at the power plant with a different perspective. They seem to think that if you don't agree with them, that you must be evil, and that's really too bad. It's a huge character flaw that they have in their opposition. I sit here and I tell you, I believe they have a right to their position, and I absolutely respect it. And I would never, ever say anything negative about anybody involved on that side. And it's too bad that they're doing that to Bill Carpenter if that's his position, and he's got a right to that position. I wish more people would think about the tax rate. I wish more people would think about business in Brockton and give it a fair shot. That's all. And Bill's got a right to that opinion. They have a right to politically attack him on that opinion. So I'm staying out of it. It's not my position. And like I said, I don't know anything about what's going on with the power plant right now.
So just to kind of wrap things up in regards to the power plant issue, which is the hot issue at this point in time in Brockton, you
know what I say? Put it on the ballot. Have the city council have the courage to put it on the ballot. Because I think that the people that are opposed to it are making a lot of noise. But I think the quiet majority supports growth. It supports new, clean industries. And natural gas is clean. And it'll be here with us for the next 25 years. Remember, I told you I'm developing solar. I'm working with wind. I believe that we need an alternative energy strategy for energy independence. But in the interim, we still need a lot of energy. You heard yesterday, you heard the IPO and the National Grid saying, turn things down, guys. We got problems. We need more energy. We need energy in crisis times. We need energy to develop new industries, new R&D, new biotech, new nanotech. It was always our vision that if that power plant went in, that we would rezone everything south in that industrial park all the way over to Kmart is a biotech park, and try to go out and recruit growing industries for Brockton because they like to be around power plants. It's just something that we have to be a little more forward thinking in how we pay our bills in Brockton. We can't keep doing it on the small businessman. We can't keep doing it on the homeowner. We need some dramatic new growth, and that's just my position. Like I said to you earlier, I have a huge amount of respect and love for Linda Belzotti, and I do for Bill Carpenter and anybody that takes on these tough issues. But that's just my opinion, and I don't think anything less of anybody that has a different opinion. I respect Eddie Byers. He works very hard down there on his business. And I'm not going to draw a line in the sand and say because somebody thinks differently than me that they're right or I'm right and they're wrong. I'm simply going to say we agree to disagree.
So concluding the discussion about the power plant, you feel that the overwhelming majority of people in Brockton are in favor of the power plant. The minority just tends to be, at this point in time, a little bit more vocal. You also support the power plant because it's good for business and pollution you feel would be at a minimum.
At a minimum. And it would be good for business. It would be good for Brockton. It would be good for our tax rate. As to the desal plant, it was always our hope that we could purchase that plant someday. We never wanted to be a tenant forever. And there's nothing new about that argument. It's an argument we talked about back in 2004 and 5 and 6 when we were permitting that plant. And, remember that, and this would be interesting for anybody that's really interested on the water crisis. People forget that we were told by Boston, you got to find an alternative source. Otherwise, they were going to reimpose the water moratorium on Brockton. It was a court order. So we went out and we did this because we didn't want to hook up to MWRA. We knew that would be a catastrophe fight in the long run, that we were going to get trounced on by the anti-Quabbin, by the Quabbin people out in the middle part of the state. So we found this alternative. But you don't build water plants for the next political cycle. You build water plants for the 5 next generations. Someday that water will be a savior. Let me give you a classic point on that discussion. When they were building the T down in Hanson, Chief Kenny Gallagher, one of the most respected fire chiefs in the history of Massachusetts, came in this evening. He said, we got a problem. They're about to go over our water lines. They're 100 years old, Jack. If one breaks, the other will break. And we won't have any water for weeks. At that time, we started to think about the need for an alternative source of water, just in case a catastrophe like that occurred, just in case something happened at Silver Lake. This gives us that alternative backup. So it's a huge safety mechanism. If we owned it, we could sell it. My biggest disappointment, and I don't mind saying this publicly, is that the Bluestone and NEMA Group hasn't done anything to market the water. They're supposed to be out selling that water. That means they have to have a marketing team in place, and they have to have a lobbyist in place to work with DEP on a regular basis to make sure that if the town of Norton wants water, they get it. If the town of Easton wants water, they get it. So that our burden goes down. And they didn't do that. I don't know that stands in terms of a contract breach, whether it justifies the city calling them in breach, but they didn't do their job. And if we took it over, we could hire an O&M company to come in and run it with a marketing team in place that would go out and sell it. Either that or we'll sell Brockton water in bottles. But we have a right to demand that they go out and market that water. We've also been in a situation lately because of global warming where we've had such incredible rains that the reservoir hasn't dropped. And so it doesn't look as good as it could have. But I still think the city should move in the direction of acquiring the plant with a partner, with an equity partner. Money is cheap on Wall Street right now. It'd be a great time to do it and take control of it themselves.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, this desal plant currently is not distributing any water to Brockton or really any surrounding communities. It's really not being used for its intended purpose originally.
It's a 5 million gallon a day backup, and that's not what it was intended to be.
Where did it all go wrong?
Rains, I think. The fact that, I'll give you a classic example. They did work with the town of Norton. Norton really wanted the water. Mansfield needs the water, and they would have wheeled it through Norton. And the company decided the best way to get water to Norton was to run a new pipeline up 495. And the state said, no, we're not going to let you do that, even though they were off the road. So Norton never got the water. Now they're talking about doing a reservoir. But the fact of the matter is that creative thinking would have done it differently. Creative thinking, we already stubbed Easton. Easton is next to Norton. We would have run the water through Easton, wheeled it, and you do it with meters, and then sold it to Norton through Easton. No pipelines were necessary. except the connectors. The same with Weymouth Air Base. We could have run it through Brockton, wheeled it through Abington, and connected Weymouth Air Base without building huge, expensive pipelines. But they're not thinking creatively at that plant right now, and that infuriates me. We could have sold 1.5 million to 3 million gallons a day by now to communities that need it, and they didn't do it, and that's disappointing to me.
The city of Brockton is paying in excess of $5 million per year to the folks at the Aquaria desal plant, yet the plant is running at a loss and really not doing what was originally intended to be doing. A lot of people in Brockton have said, let's get ourselves out of that contract of paying $5 million a year since they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Your thoughts on that?
I haven't seen the contract since I left office, so I can't really comment on it. You just don't walk away from a contract and not get sued. Contracts are legal documents. If there's an out clause, I'm pretty sure that Phil Nezzarella would have found it. And that's why I say that we're better off going in with a fair market value offer. And the fair market value of that plant that's lost money for 5 years isn't much. It isn't much. It's probably half the cost of building it. It's not our contract. And Bluestone likes to keep saying it's a $125 million contract. Well, that assumes we appropriate the money. So that's what I would look at. That's a long-term solution, but I think we should do it. And we'll see what happens during the course of the debates, whether the politicians like that idea or don't like that idea, whether you guys are sharp enough to bring up that idea in the debates. But I think it's one of the issues that should be debated.
7:30 here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. You're listening to the Metro South Morning Show. We're chatting with Jack Yunits live in studio this morning. Jack, you're sticking around with us till 8 o'clock, right?
8 o'clock.
So we're going to step aside for a quick breather. Mike Paiva is going to provide us with a local news update from the WXBR newsroom. When we return, back with more of former Brockton Mayor Jack Yunits here on WXBR. AM 1460, the new WXBR. Peter Czymbor and Mike Paiva here with you on this Wednesday morning. Joined live in studio by former mayor of Brockton, the longest-serving mayor in Brockton's history, Mayor Jack Yunits. Jack, we were actually joined by a very special guest during the news update who just wanted to saunter in and say hello.
It was great. It was Henry Hank the Tank Tattaglia came by, one of the greatest Brocktonians. And Henry is promoting Pitt Perrin celebration for 50 years in boxing. Think about it. Pitt Perrin, one of our legends, who's brought in so many great kids and helped train so many great kids and turned around a lot of lives, is celebrating his 50th anniversary Tuesday night, this next Tuesday night, the 23rd, at Joey Angelo's Cafe. It's only a $20 ticket. It would be a great honor for Pitt. He's had his own little fights lately, and he's battling hard. So please keep it in mind. Anybody that knows Pitt loves Pitt and would love to see you Tuesday night, the 23rd, at Joey Angelo's from 6 to 10 p.m. To celebrate with Pitt Perrin, his 50th anniversary.
And
Great
Hank
guy.
was nice enough to donate a few tickets to that particular event that we can give away early on next week on the show. Mike, I'm going to head on down. You're going to head down next Tuesday to Joey Angelo's Cafe?
I believe we're going to be broadcasting live this event, so here
wonderful.
on the station. So
Good for you guys. Yeah, so keep promoting it. It's a great event. And I want to say something else, too, because I was thinking about it during the break, Peter. I happened to be at school committee last night for a client, and I watched a presentation that stunned me. This is what people that have differences can have their differences and still work together. Billy Carpenter, as you know, is on the school committee, and, of course, Mayor Belzotti chairs it. Last night, Mike Thomas gave a presentation about how they turned around the B.B. Russell School in a matter of months and are about to get it ready to open in September as a preschool. And I was just awed by the effort, by the organization, by what happens when a group works together. They took about $1.5 million budget and did it for $500,000 with in-house people, the school department's personnel. And it's an incredible story of success. It just made me so proud to see what a team could do when they work together. And that just goes to show you can have differences politically, but when the cause is right and the motivation is good, you can get it done. And I'm just so proud of that school committee last night, and Mayor Belzardi and Billy Carpenter and everybody else, Tommy Minicello, everybody else that was involved in getting that project done, but especially to Mike Thomas and the school tradesmen that made it happen. It's a great story. It's a huge savings for the taxpayer, and it's a wonderful investment for the future of Brockton's kids. So I'm just so proud of it. It was a great show.
Once again, we're chatting with ex-mayor Jack Yunits here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. Jack, one of the big accomplishments that was seen during your time as mayor of Brockton as you left office was the construction of Campanelli Stadium and the formation of the Brockton Rocks baseball team. That was 2005 when you left office. The organization was thriving in terms of public perception and was a fun entertainment destination for not just people within the city, but people in surrounding communities and beyond, each and every weekend, and even during the week throughout the course of the summertime. Circa 2013, the organization has had its ups and downs over the years. It actually was defunct for a period of times in terms of being an operating baseball team. What was formerly an independent league, minor league baseball team is now a wooden bat team consisting of amateur college players from schools within New England. The team really saw its financial difficulties. Now, following your tenure as mayor, a few years later, you became president of the Brockton Rocks. That is no longer correct?
No, I did that for a few years. It was a money pit. But it was worth the cost. It was worth the effort. And I think we did save it. Keep in mind that we built this complex not necessarily as an investment. We built it like most communities build parks, to be a game changer in the public relations world, to give Brockton people something to be proud of, to give Brockton families a place to go in the summer, the families that couldn't afford to go over the bridge, to bring their kids and to have fun. But we also built it because Christos, too, was closing. And we wouldn't have had an event for him in the city of Brockton. And that's just not acceptable. That meant that the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars we raise every year in charities would have been raised in Randolph or Whitman or someplace else. So we got a threefer out of this. We got baseball. We got a conference center that's raised. I was at a boys club event. I'm still very involved with the Boys and Girls Club. I was at a boys club event in May that raised $330,000 at the Shaw Center. And the third most important part of this is we were able to create jobs for Brockton people, jobs that have helped a lot of kids every year pay for college. A lot of moms pay the bills. And the conference center continues to be a big employer in Brockton, and the stadium in the summer, an employer for part-timers. So it served everything we wanted it to do. Now, what happened with the baseball side is that I think the investors got a little wary and tired of it and stopped investing. And of course, you had the struggle with the economy. And the type of investors that get involved in baseball are the type of guys that would rather invest in baseball than buy a boat. In other words, they have money to burn. But in 2006, when the economy tanked, they lost a lot of money, and they didn't want to lose any more on baseball. So they kind of pulled back. They pulled back not just in Brockton. In 2009, I believe, 97 teams across America folded. And the Independent League got in real trouble. The Can-Am League, that is. Some independent leagues did well in the bigger markets. But the Can-Am League started to struggle. So this catastrophe that was created by the collapse of the market in New York City and that terrible fraud that was put on the American people by the bond companies, it had an impact here on baseball. Now things are turning around a little bit. The rumors are that the Atlantic League would like to start another division. The Atlantic League is one of those leagues that remained strong during the crisis.
It's an independent league. Yeah,
it's an independent league. It's based out of New York City, and it's a pretty strong league. They would like to have a Northern Division, so that would mean Massachusetts gets back in play. Bridgeport would probably be in that league, move out of the original Atlantic League and move into this subsequent league, and there'll be other teams in New England that they might look at. But that would be a blessing for Brockton. It would bring professional baseball back, and professional baseball would mean that they would come in with new ownership, with people with money. And the other thing I'd like to see Brockton at some point, once they're stabilized, once they know what direction they want to go, I'd like to see them start to talk with Clear Channel. Clear Channel is now a national monopoly when it comes to the concert business. They own Cohasset. They own the Melody Tent. They own the rights, that is. They own the rights to Mansfield. They own the rights to the tent in Boston, whatever that's called. So they not only have the big events at Foxborough Stadium and at Fenway Park and Mansfield, but they have the little events as well locked up. We would be a perfect fit for that group, because when you bring a band in or you bring a singer in, if you can give the singer 2 or 3 forums to play in, it's a twofer for the investor, for the promoter, because he's only paying travel expenses once. So I think it would work. It would allow us to have the smaller concerts in Brockton, more of the upscale concerts in terms of people my age that won't drive to Cohasset, but would go to a concert at Campanelli Stadium, and the more tempered, moderate entertainment that we could do there. The other way we can get it done now, because of the monopoly, is a partnership with Clear Channel. And I think that's doable. I think we just have to change the approach and make it happen. We could have 6 to 8, maybe 10 concerts a year between May and October at the stadium, and it would be wonderful.
You mentioned the purposes that you wanted the Brockton Rocks, Campanelli Stadium, the Shaw Center to serve, and I don't think there's any dispute that it has served the purposes that you illustrated for us. I think the question is, can the organization and the business financially sustain itself in this area? And that has been a question mark surrounding them. They have at times, they have not at others.
Well, I still do. In the last couple of years, whenever Mike Kaneda calls me,
president of the Brockton Rocks, for the record.
Whenever Mike calls me, I still do free legal work for them. So I am privy to what's going on up there. The Shaw Center is making money, and the baseball team is going to make money this year. They're doing a little bit better. The expenses, of course, for having college as opposed to professional, the expense sheet side of the business is way lower, much lower, hugely lower, 60 to 80% lower. So you don't need to fill it with 5,000 people 3 nights a week to make it work. And they're doing okay. The promotions are better. They're running on a very low budget. We had hoped to have an investor in there this year. It didn't happen. But like I said, having a professional team come back in would be a game changer. But they're not losing money. I can tell you they're not losing money. They're going to be okay. People have put their thinking caps on. The 21st century, they're going to miss Mary Waldron immeasurably down there, believe me. She was a huge help to the stadium complex. But the fact of the matter is that they worked hard, they worked together, and they were able to save it. It's going to be okay. I've had a great time the few times I've been up there this year.
Payments and rent that the folks from Campanelli Stadium are going to owe to others, all going to be taken care of and whatnot. That was a big controversy.
The only thing that's still hanging is the obligation to the city, and that can get paid off over time. The city's still in control of the complex, so it's not like that. That's going to go belly up. They'll adjust it and they'll pay it back over time. It'll get done.
So folks might head on down to Campanelli Stadium now.
It's kind of like rewriting a mortgage.
Yeah.
Occasionally you have to do it.
People might see a few less thousand people at the ballpark now than they did, say, 5 years ago. At the same time, due to the fact that they don't have to pay their players because they're amateur collegiate athletes as opposed to pros, cuts are significantly lower, and they're actually able to profiteer a little more than they ever were during the days of them being a professional organization.
Yeah, no. When I say they're making money, that doesn't mean they're making huge amounts of money. They're paying the bills, and there's a little bit left. The only way to make money down there is you have to run over 100,000 people, and I can't imagine.
Which they did do a few times.
Oh yeah, they were up 150, 160,000 people for a few years there, in the early years. But at the college level, you don't need that to make money. I think there's 27 home dates. If they get 40, 50,000 people over those 27 home dates, they'll be okay. And they look like they're doing it. They're getting good crowds on Friday night. They're doing okay in the weekends. A little bit slow in the weekdays, but it's still a great product. And the people still coming from all over southeastern Massachusetts. and as far away as I've met people up there from Dover and Sudbury. They come down with their kids for the night out.
If the Rocks were to go back to being a professional team as opposed to the collegiate team they are now, how do you make that work? Is it kind of the bells and whistles of extra events at the stadium when the team's away that you mentioned, like concerts and whatnot?
No, you know what? It's all about marketing. All about marketing. So anybody that comes in here with a professional team knows they have a big nut to pay. And the only way they're going to pay that nut is to put pants in the seats. So there'll be a huge marketing budget, and the Brockton Rocks will be front and center. You'll probably see a couple ex-major leaguers on the roster. You'll see, I would love to see our old friend Eddie Noddle back in uniform again out there. It would be great. I think people would respect that. Guy's still sharp as a tack. Bad choice of friends, but still a great guy. And that's the kind of thing that we need to do. Eddie, by the way, was a great marketer. He wasn't just a good manager. He was a good marketer. And he'd be great to have back in the fold.
Ed Noddle in town right now, by the way. Yeah. He always finds himself in Brockton despite the fact that he never resides here.
Yeah.
Friend to everyone.
Yeah, the kid from Philadelphia who moved to the Midwest and fell in love with Brockton. That's Eddie Noddle's story.
And I don't know if you saw this last night, but Steve Delabar, former Brockton Rocks pitcher, now a member of the Toronto Blue Jays, just last night participated in the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, and I think that one of the attractions to going to Brockton Rocks baseball back in the day when it was an independent league team was seeing prospects that could potentially someday make the Major Leagues. Now, that's kind of like finding a needle in a haystack, but with Steve Delabar, the Rocks were able to do it. Well,
we had a couple kids on our roster last year in the college league that were number one draft choice potentials, but they decided to go to college. You're going to see them. You'll see them someday in the pros. We do have kids that are still there. Remember, we're getting them now at 18, 19 years old. The kid Tufts from Bridgewater, who plays third base for us now, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in uniform someday at the major league level. He's a heck of a ball player. And his dad was a great ball player. And a heck of a nice kid, by the way. But that's still there. But to see Steve Delabar out there, Steve Delabar was not just a great athlete, but a great kid. And to see him out there last night was tremendous. It was really great. Because Josh Hamilton played for us, too. When he got released from Major League Baseball because of his drug problem, the Rocks gave him a shot.
I do remember that, yes.
Yeah. And, of course, he
had a cup of coffee with the Rocks, unlike Delabar.
We kept him in baseball. And then he got picked up, and off he went. Before we even – I think it was the preseason that he actually got picked up, the last preseason game. And he went back and became a superstar for Texas. So, but there's good stories there, and Stevie Delabar is certainly one of them. He was a great kid, and I'm so happy to see how successful he's been. Playing in a Major League All-Star game is every American kid's dream, and he's got to be so excited about what happened last night. He pitched well, too.
Once again, we're chatting with Jack Yunits here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, ex-mayor of Brockton. Mike, help me out here because I might need some help in listing all of the candidates for mayor who are running this fall. There's the incumbent, Linda Belzotti, Bill Carpenter, who we mentioned, your old foe, Arnold Greenblatt.
Oh, Arnold's back?
Arnold Greenblatt is back in the mix.
God love him.
Chris McMillan.
Ron Matta. And am I missing anybody? Or is that's it.
That's the five right there. What advice do you have those five people who will vie for the seat of mayor, first in the preliminary in September, and then in the regular election come November?
I won't say it on the air, but buy my book. I wrote a book called The Urban Mayor, and I talk about how important it is to have a message.
Where can folks buy that book, by the way, Jack?
And what's that?
Where can folks buy that book?
I hope so. It's over at the Stonehill College. Decca has books for sale. Paperback Junction in Easton, a wonderful little bookstore, has books. My trunk, I carry them around. Curry College, UMass, Boston, and a great little garden shop in Boston on Adams Street called the Cedar Grove Garden Shop, sells the books as well. And then, of course, you can buy them online. And we're just about, I think, by the end of this week, we can buy them on Kindle. And we're working right now, too, with Barnes & Noble to get them on the Barnes & Noble book. But in there I talk about, by the way, not to beat my own drum here, but I did win an Independent Publishers Award down in New York City recently.
Congratulations.
And that was really heartwarming. There was a huge crowd. It was a nice event, and it was kind of neat. But the point is, in the book, I do talk about having a message, making sure there's integrity. Look at the candidate. People are going to look at the candidates and say, this is guy, take Chris McMillan. Chris has been, before he got engaged in politics, he was a consummate volunteer. He ran Little Leagues. He was involved in everything at the North Side. Those are the kind of things you look at. We all know, Carpenter's been involved. Linda, of course, has been involved in everything for as long as I can remember. Those are the kind of things you look at in a candidate. Have your message, knock on doors. You have to meet the people. And that gets difficult. The mayor right now, of course, she's had some real personal tragedies, the loss of her sister, who was also her best friend, and a wonderful teacher and a wonderful person. And she's got problems with health problems with her mom, and she's a committed daughter. That takes a lot of wind out of a candidate's efforts, but it doesn't detract from their sincerity. When people throw their hat in the ring to be a mayor, they ought to be commended. When they lead, they ought to be commended, because it takes a huge amount of sacrifice on the personal side to do that job. Even to this day, when I go to Shaw's, I can't say I'll be back in 15 minutes. I know I'm going to have to add 20 or 30 minutes because I'll run into people who want to talk about issues. But when I was mayor, it was a 45-minute venture just to get in and out and pick up a jug of milk. Because the mayor is the most identifiable political figure in the community. So if you're going to run, you have to love people. 2, you have to have a clear message. 3, you have to understand what the heck you're talking about. I hear candidates talking about the budget that don't know what they're talking about. And they have to go back and educate themselves.
In retrospect, was it all worth it, all the stress?
Oh, absolutely. You know what? There's very few things in life that you can do to help control the destiny of your family and make it a better place for our kids. And the primary thing I always used as my mission is it's not about the next election, it's about the next generation. And we did that in Brockton. We changed the school system. We built new schools. We built libraries, the stadiums, the soccer fields. We advanced the cause for the next generation and water. We solved a 50-year-old water crisis. We advanced the cause for the next generation. My kids have all done well despite it all. And they've done well because they had a great mom who is probably she's the greatest thing that ever happened to all of us.
If anyone involved in politics in the South Shore Brockton area, your son Connor has the funniest Twitter, by the way.
I wish I was half as smart as my son Connor. He obviously got his mother's brains. He's a great kid, and he's doing very well, as are all my kids. I'm very proud of them all. So they survived it because they had a committed mom. Because I was a negligent dad for those 10 years. I was gone all the time. And that part I regret. But the task itself, I don't have any regrets.
You mentioned earlier that you are currently a private citizen. You are not a public servant. Have we seen the last of you as a public servant, or will you run for something again someday?
I don't think so. I'll do whatever I can to help my community. I stayed involved with the Youth Foundation, the Boys and Girls Club, Cardinal Spellman's Board. I believe in it, but I don't think I need to be back in politics. It's for the next generation, and I would love to see the next generation get more engaged. There's a lot of talent, a lot of great kids. I was so happy to see Nelson Fernandez came back to Brockton and open up a restaurant. He's a wonderful kid, and the fact that he can make Ollie Spears happy at the lunch counter, that means a lot to me because I know Ollie likes his food. Ollie's one of the greatest guys around.
He's jumping in the political hat this season as well, running
he
for
is?
Ward 5 city councilor.
Oh, God love him. That's great to hear. He's a great guy. But it's great to see the young people come back, and I pray to God they come back and take an interest in our city because they're the only ones that can change it.
Well, Jack, I want to thank you so much for coming in this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for being a voice. It's great to have you back.
We'll have to do it again sometime. That is the ex-mayor of Brockton, Jack Yunits, joining us here on AM 1460, the new WXBR.